Yo guys, my name is Zopreme, and in today's video, I'll talk The Flash Season 4 and will Barry Allen become the Speed Force? So guys, at the end of The Flash Season 3, Barry went into the Speed Force. Then, as we know, when Barry first returns from the Speed Force in The Flash Season 4, he'll be confused and kinda lost. Now, in an actual interview at Comic-Con, Grant Gustin said that Barry's time in the Speed Force won't be shown in the show, only the effects that he has. And in the comics, Barry Allen, aka The Flash, actually becomes the Speed Force, and every time Barry actually runs, he generates a Speed Force, which was also the source of his powers. This is actually explained in the Silver Age Flash. The Speed Force was created when Barry was struck by lightning in the comics, and after that the Speed Force echoed through time. We saw the Speed Force go through Barry's eye in the Flash Season 4 episode 1 trailer, and we've seen this before, the Speed Force going through Barry's eye, but because Barry's confused and has lived his life over and over again in the Speed Force, maybe the Speed Force has forgiven Barry and given him the responsibility of actually becoming the embodiment of the Speed Force and taking the full responsibility of the actual Speed Force. We already know Cisco is trying to find a way of getting Barry out of the Speed Force at the start of Season 4, but if the Speed Force actually wanted to keep Barry in the Speed Force, then it actually would. There'd be no way of Cisco getting him out, but it looks like the Speed Force is actually letting Barry go, so maybe the Speed Force has thought it's time to let him go. He's learned his lesson, but maybe there's more to that. Maybe something or some things have happened in the Speed Force that have actually changed him. As we know, Barry's different in Season 4. He's more mature and he's got a better grasp of his skills to do with speed, of course. It would make sense if Barry did actually become the Speed Force and was essentially the battery of the Speed Force, so he's basically the physical form of the Speed Force, and then there actually is another dimension of the Speed Force. When we saw Barry in the Speed Force, basically that plane, that other reality still exists, but Barry actually is the Speed Force now and kind of takes responsibility of it. So you could call him the actual battery of the Speed Force. So if this does happen, this would mean Barry has a greater connection to the Speed Force, so maybe his lightning does change. But if that's not the case, maybe he still does have a greater connection, or he's faster. So he'll basically be the conduit of the Speed Force, generating the Speed Force every time he runs. But usually he just generates the lightning and the speed. But if he does become the Speed Force, he will actually generate the Speed Force every time he runs or takes a step. And that could be another reason for Barry writing on the board and running through Star Labs, because he's been given so much information on the Speed Force and he's now the conductor of the Speed Force that it's so much to take in, and he has to like eventually calm down and take it in because he's mature now, so he can, you know, process the information. But it's quite a lot to process, so he needs about an episode or episode and a half to, you know, figure out what's going on and to calm himself down essentially, so he's in a good place mentally. So yeah guys, tell me in the comments below, do you think the Speed Force actually becomes Barry and Barry becomes the Speed Force? Like he's actually the conductor and the conduit of the Speed Force now because of his time in the 6-month gap in the Speed Force. So yeah guys, I did like this video. My name's Zopreme. You guys have been the best as always. Peace out.